All right, Nick Kirby here. Pleased to be joined by Matt Allaire. Matt, I was going to wait a little bit to have you back on again, but then we have an exciting day on Wednesday, and you're one of the guys I really wanted to talk about this day yesterday. If you're listening on Thursday morning podcast or on YouTube, Chase Burns makes his debut for the Reds, and while we didn't see it, we kind of saw it. We saw some social media clips later. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have that overlaying right now for you. But man, just blew everything out of the water.
Nick, this is a Chase Burns appreciation podcast, and I think it's important that we get out immediately here and just he's who we thought he would be. Like the numbers back up what we thought he should be coming out of college. Like I know everybody was a little like concerned about the numbers being like fudged a bit in college. I think we can kind of put that to bed now based on what we saw today. Obviously, it's a short outing. We can only like glean so much information from this. But if you're not excited about Chase Burns after this, then I really don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he can come out as his first outing, throw strikes, did walk one batter, but overall that was a 3-2 count, so it wasn't like uh, all due respect, it wasn't a Connor Phillips outing.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I mean, just striking on the side. Look, they're all minor leaguers, but just for him to do this, and then some of the data that we've seen already, which I know you're gonna want to talk about here in a second. It is so incredibly exciting to have this kind of talent in the Reds organization.
It's really not every day that you get to see somebody with truly 80 grade stuff, especially with multiple pitches that are 80 grade. I know that right now we're probably getting ahead of ourselves a bit in terms of what the models are saying. Maybe they're not true 80 pitches, maybe they're more 70, 75 pitches. But even if like just the fastball is an 80 grade, if he has a 70 grade slider to go with that, that's already one of the best pitchers that you can put out there. I really do think that managing expectations with him is important. I don't think we're going to be wasting a lot of bullets with him. I would have to imagine based on just these numbers we're seeing. This guy's pumping out 100 seemingly very easily. I'm curious kind of what path we'll take with him because he reminds me a lot of young Hunter Greene in the aspect that he's throwing 100 regularly. Do they ask him to pump it down to 97 at some point to try to avoid TJ down the line? How do they manage that? I don't know. But man, what was it? 19.3 IVB on that fastball. What are you supposed to do against that? That's just a fastball that just says, go ahead and hit it. Like, go ahead.
Can you explain a little bit of IVB and the easiest terms that you can, just for the listeners at home? Because I know we have a lot of people that...
Induced vertical break is mainly just how much does the ball move up and down when the batter sees it. Like when it releases from the hand, how the movement profile is basically saying from what this looks like this ball is going to do, if it were to go dead straight, how does it move from there? And this is a rising fastball that just has some run that we have not seen. When's the last time we had a pitcher with 19 or 20 IVB? It can't be that many guys on our system who have that. What's Maxwell's? Maxwell's
I don't know.
is...
Well, while you're looking that up
18.
for some...
Maxwell's is 18, and that's like still a really good fastball, all things considered. And this is the first outing for Burns. I think 20 IVB is really within the realm of possibility for him. But man, hopefully that explained it well. I know that was a little rushing through.
Yeah, for some context, for people who aren't familiar, the average in baseball is 15 to 16. So, yep. I mean, that's when you're up at 19, that's a pretty significant jump there, and you're towards the top of the sport in terms of break on your fastball.
Right. And when you have guys who are used to seeing 15, 16 all the time, and that's what they're conditioned to see and they're conditioned to expect from a pitcher, if it's 4 inches above where they're expecting it to be, or even 5 inches above where they expect it to be, that is a huge advantage, especially when you have other pitches to go along with it. And it's not just that fastball by itself. If he's able to really like keep the command that it seems like he's able to keep, I don't think he had a ton of command issues last year, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think he walked a ton of guys. Obviously, with stuff like that, you're gonna walk a few guys here and there, but at the same time, man, it's really difficult to not be excited. I know we talked about this privately earlier, but I don't know if we see him in Dayton this year. I know a lot of Dragons fans were hoping to get a look at him, and myself included. I just don't know if we're gonna even get a chance to see him in Dayton. This feels like the way that I think about this is if Chase Burns isn't getting a fast track, then nobody's getting a fast track, which I don't really have a problem with either way. But this is like the clear guy who could get a fast track up to the majors quickly.
Yeah, so some more context here. Just looking at vertical break for the four seam
Yes.
fastball. The best in baseball. I put the parameter at 750 pitches to kind of weed out a couple relievers. Nick Pivetta at 19.9 was the highest in baseball. Looking through the Reds, you might be surprised. The best was Hunter Greene down at 16.6, Andrew Abbott at 16.3. Not sure everyone else qualified, but that just kind of gives you an idea of the stuff we're dealing with here.
And what does Pavetta what's his velo? Isn't it like 96, 97 too? Or am I misremembering that?
At 93.9. So
yeah, dude, what are we what are we talking about here? A 19 IVB fastball going 100 miles an hour at you. I don't care what slot that ball's coming out at. Good luck. And I think that if we're watching his progression, if he's able to really put this all together, we could be seeing like a real true ace, which is, I feel like we keep saying that about, I know we're going to talk about Hunter Greene a bit here too, but man, it's hard to not get excited about this pitching staff and what's coming up here soon. I mean, with Petty yesterday and then what Louder could be and what Burns seems like he could be, it's hard to not be very bullish on the current pitching development we have, especially on the starters at least.
So Reds kind of stopped a little bit in the tracks because right after the outing, it was officially announced that Chase Burns was reassigned to minor league camp. I have to assume that was probably part of the whole plan going through. We're going to put him in major league camp. We're going to have him go through a bunch of workouts. We're going to have him work with Derek Johnson very closely. Not that I'm pretty sure Derek Johnson's still going to have a pretty big hand in the Reds' top prospect going forward, but nonetheless, we'll give him one outing as a major leaguer on the major league whatever you call major league camp, and then we're going to send him down, all part of the plan. So having said that, our friend Mitch Reds and 4 put out a tweet that kind of was fascinating. It was a good tweet, good thought exercise for sure. I'm going to read it here so I don't butcher it. Mitch says, I'm going to make a statement. I think it's going to kick off what is going to become some extremely toxic discourse for at least at the minimum spring, if not longer. Every pitch thrown by Chase Burns, not at the major league level, is an unnecessary risk taken. So Mitch coming out firing. I like where his head's at. Let me start there. I like where his head's at. I don't think this is a terrible idea at all. I'm not sure I'd go as far as Mitch in terms of I think it's okay if he pitches a month in the minor leagues, kind of the same plan as Paul Skeens. I don't think you necessarily want to rush someone and force them into a situation they're not there, but I don't think you need to leave him down there until September just for seasoning if he can really help this team. Now, I feel a lot different about position players. With position players, yeah, I know it's not right, but I care about my team a lot. And so I'll leave guys down a little bit longer and get that extra service time. I think chasing that with pitchers is a fool's errand because of injuries and all that kind of stuff. So I'm with Mitch to a degree, not that far, but if Chase Burns goes down to Double-A, which is probably my best guess right now, starts there and absolutely dominates, I don't think he needs to go to Triple-A. I would sit him down there for a month, call him up, and let him help the team in some capacity.
And whether that's as a starter or a reliever, I don't really care, quite frankly. I don't think that you would either. I think there's a pretty good chance we could see him try a whole bunch of different things with him. I agree in the sentiment of position players versus pitchers. and how you treat their service time. How we treat Noel Marte is going to be a lot different than how we treat Chase Burns, and I think that's fine. I don't think there's really a problem with that. With pitchers, especially with Chase Burns, where his entire thing is that he has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with that type of movement, you do have to. There is always going to be in your back of your head that you're worried about injury with that, just because you have to be. History dictates that you need to be. So I agree that you don't necessarily want to waste a ton of bullets in the minor leagues. I think they're going to probably send him down there to start the year. I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't have him down there for like a month, maybe two. I think it will be results based. I think if he dominates in AA and then they give him a louder S start in AAA where they just say, hey, if you can go up there and dominate those guys too, we may just need your help. And obviously there will be health potential like with the major league team. Who knows what happens? He may be needed sooner than that. He may not be needed at all to start the season. We don't know what that looks like yet. So I think there's a lot of factors at play that will determine when he actually debuts for this team. And some of that is in his control and some of it's out of his control. But after what we watched today and based on all the data that we have, I'm getting to the point where I'd be a little surprised if he's not up on the All-Star break. And I didn't feel that way really prior to today seeing these numbers. I was thinking more like, okay, maybe later playoff run, a little later in the year. I don't know how you keep this guy down if he's going to be dominating the way that it seems like he should in the minors based on these numbers.
I wish I could go behind the curtain and see what the Reds were like saying before this. Like they knew what they had, and they're just holding it in the back pocket. Yeah. They're like, yeah, we got this absolute phenom that's just come to spring, and everything we're seeing from him is off the charts. And
we could have had an outfielder, Nick. We could have had an outfielder. I want to remind you that we could have drafted an outfielder.
Yeah, would have solved all our problems. We'd be so back. But yeah, I mean, just very exciting stuff. It's gonna be fascinating to see what they do with him, and I don't think that the Reds, what's going on in the big leagues, should really impact Chase Burns at all. I think if your plan is to sit him down for a month, if he dominates, we call him up. I don't care if all 5 starting pitchers are healthy. Bump one of their asses.
That's fair. Honestly, that's fair. I can't even really argue against that. Honestly, because if he does do what we think he could do, how do you argue? Like, how do you not?
Well, this is the great thing about Nick Martinez is the flexibility that you have with them, because Nick Martinez could go into a different role. Whereas, look, if you call up Chase Burns, I think the Reds are probably going to be even less aggressive than Paul Skeens. I think Paul Skeens was obviously a little bit further along, too, in terms of his development and able to pitch deep into games right away. So I don't think the Reds are going to call up Chase Burns and have him going 7 innings a start. It probably be a lot of 4 or 5s depending on how pitch efficient he is. Well, you could kind of piggyback him with Nick Martinez. You could have Nick Martinez be available for 3 innings on that day, and then maybe have Nick Martinez available for 2 innings another day. And the Reds could really get creative here, which is going to be kind of fascinating to see how out of the box will they go with it. I fully believe at this point we're going to see him before the All-Star break, like you said. What I'm curious on is how creative they're going to be with that call-up and how they use them.
And creativity, this is Tito we're talking about here. Like, I think there's a pretty good chance we see some wacky stuff this year in terms of how rosters are constructed, how lineups are constructed, how we use pitchers. It's going to be fun. I think that I like the idea of kind of using, you could even use Martinez as a bit of an opener for him. I don't know. Burns might just be ready, dude. It's very possible that he's just ready today. We just are going to give him a little time to ramp up. But I think you could throw Chase Burns out there on the mound today, and there's a pretty good chance that he would have a good outing against a full major league lineup. And like you said, service time's not really an issue. So it'll be fun to watch. I'm excited to see what happens, where he gets assigned, how long he's there. I think this is going to be a pretty quick minor league trip for him. If it ends up being longer than we expected, then something either went horribly wrong or there's something we don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, don't want to get too far out of our skis. I mean, it's almost impossible when you see stuff like that. But I'll be fascinated to see. I mean, look, when Chase Burns pitches in the minor leagues, I'm probably going to be a little more interested in that minor league game than the Reds game. I mean, if I'm just being honest.
We'll
That's gonna
see.
kinda be how it is.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Nick. Come on, we still got some good baseball to watch in Cincinnati.
We do. We also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. Speaking of good baseball in Cincinnati, that was a pretty decent transition.
Great.
How about Hunter
great
Greene
segment.
today? Hunter Greene was fantastic. 4 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Good to see Hunter Greene bounce back at a tough time his last time out. Not really going to put a whole lot of stock in what Greene does, because last year he was not very good in spring training and had his best season as a professional. So, but nonetheless, good to see Hunter Greene. I mean, he feels like the ace pitcher right now, and he also might get a little extra motivation here from a guy like
I
Chase
know,
Burns.
dude.
When he
I
has
hope
like,
so.
you guys have this shiny new toy. Don't forget, like I got Cy Young votes. I was an All-Star last year. Don't forget about me. I think those kinds of things are really good and healthy for a
You want healthy
pitcher.
competition inside a team. You want guys to be, healthily competing against each other to be the guy. That's how you get greatness out of these guys. You don't get greatness by complacency. So I mean, you look at Hunter's numbers from even just the stuff. Obviously, we don't, like you said, want to put too much into the results of spring training. There's a lot of stuff that's being tested. There's a lot of, they're not actually attacked. They're not playing the chess matches. The way I like to put it is they're not playing the chess match in spring training. They're working on specific things. So I don't read too much into the results, but I do think that the stuff grades matter, and I do think that how the pitches look matter. And so far, he's passed every eye test so far and every data test so far. Hunter Greene, I think, is reliable. I don't think any Reds fan who has watched him over the last few years thinks that he's not going to be a very, very strong pitcher for us. The question is just, is this a Cy Young year from him, or is this just a very good year from him? And that's, I think, the variance with Hunter Greene.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think it's well said about like kind of his season. All right, Matt, any final thoughts? Anything else around spring training that's kind of stood out to you? I'm sure we could go spend another hour talking about Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, it's just like,
don't get me started. We can't get you started about Ellie again, dude. This is gonna.
We gotta talk about someone else.
We gotta talk someone else.
It's gonna be the same thing every day.
I think that I hope if Zach Maxwell can really lock down his command, we're looking at another really, really strong reliever that could help this team big time come down the second half this year. I don't think that we necessarily see the team and make the team out of spring, nor do I think we see him immediately. But I definitely think we see him this year, and I really hope that he can lock down the fastball command, because when he does, he's pretty unhittable, because then the slider really starts to work. I know he started working in a cutter today, I believe, or a cutter recently, and I know he's worked on a couple other pitches. I'm curious to see how those progress over this next couple months in the minors, where I think he'll really get to flesh out what those pitches look like and how he uses them. But I do think that we could be looking at a potential closer in him if he can put those pieces together. The one thing you just can't have your closer doing is not throw strikes. So that's the real big question mark with him. I really hope he can figure it out. I also have to say I'm a little bummed Cam got hurt. I really was hoping that he could make it through spring healthy. Both my guys, Cam and Sal, are both my guys in terms of who I really like in this organization right now. So watching Cam go down was a bit of a bummer. I really hope he's able to recover quickly. I don't know what the extent of the injury is or how long he'll be out or anything, but I hope to see him, bounce back here soon. And I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. So I'm excited to watch how he progresses. But those are the two things that I had today that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, Collier injury, definitely a massive bummer. I felt like he was absolutely poised for a real breakout season this year, and still could. I mean, but obviously,
yeah, I think that's still on the table.
But when you're gonna, have a delayed start, always a chance you start slow and just kind of derails your season. So hopefully he's able to recover quick. On your point on Zach Maxwell, I also kind of look at a guy like Luis May, who looked really good against the Dodgers on Tuesday night. I kind of look at both of those guys and I go, can I just get one of those guys to be good and a contributor in 2025? Because they're both very similar in terms of they have incredibly high upside, incredible fastballs, but they're also very volatile. So if my realistic expectation is I just want one of them to be a big leaguer, the other one to be a project at the end of the year. If I get that, I would be very satisfied.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a maybe not likely outcome, but a very possible outcome with these guys. Both very talented. I'm excited to watch them both as this year goes on. It's an exciting time to be a Reds fan, Nick. It's genuinely very exciting. So I love getting to talk, and I love being excited about this team. I always get excited about the Reds, but it does feel a little different, does it not? I can't be the only one feeling that this feels a little different going into this year.
3 weeks till opening day as you're listening to this today. So I mean, I just pray everyone stays healthy. Like that's
The
at this
bubble
point.
wrap, dude. Get the bubble wrap boys going. I agree with Mitch, dude. Get these guys. I don't need Matt McLain diving for anything. I've seen what I need to see with Ellie. I don't need him stealing more bases in spring training. I'm all set there. Look, I know they're going to keep playing these guys, and I know that's important. But man, like you said, the health of this team, if they're able to really keep all these guys together for 162 or even just like 130 and keep this core group of guys together, the ceiling is enormous with this team.
Yeah, I feel even better than I felt going into spring training about where that ceiling is, just because of how well guys like CES, how well McLain looks. And I know McLain struggled the last couple of days, but he looks healthy. You can tell he's healthy. He is Matt McLain. Now, what is his overall numbers going into the year? I don't know, but he's significantly better than whatever the Reds threw out there last year, and is going to be an
Correct.
upgrade there. I did want to ask you about one more guy before we close this up.
Yep.
I just thought about Chase Petty. I didn't really talk about him a ton in length yesterday because we had 2 games and I ran through every single thing that happened. But man, Chase Petty against the Dodgers out there striking out Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff.
Dude, he's a competitor out there, and I really enjoy watching him. That was a fun game to watch all around. Obviously, we ended up losing it, but I think you said it yesterday on the pod. It doesn't really matter if we win or lose these games. It's more about what you can take away from individual guys. And what we saw from Chase Petty was really good. If he can be a 4th or 5th starter, that's an awesome outcome for him. And I think that that's very much on the table. I think we need to see AAA and what he does in the International League. I think that'll be very important for him and how he progresses there, because that league can either make or break you as a pitcher to some extent. So I really want to see how he looks there, but not a guy I'm necessarily in a rush to see per se. But why waste bullets? This is a guy who can help, and if we have guys who can help, I think that we'll see them at some point. I'm curious to see how his stuff looks as the year goes on, but encouraging all around. I would have to think that you're equally as excited. I don't know if we're looking at like as an enormous. It's funny because I look at these numbers right after I looked at Burns' numbers, and I'm just like, oh man, 13 IVB, and I'm like, that's still good. Like he's still got a 117 stuff plus like fastball. That's still a really good fastball, but you look at how he pairs with the other stuff, and it's exciting. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I've always been a big Chase Petty guy, but I feel like he's a lot closer to being big league ready than I thought. I didn't think he was that close. I thought he was still almost a full year away. I wasn't expecting Chase Petty to be a contributor for the Reds till like 2026 at the earliest. Maybe a cameo at the end of 2025,
Yeah,
but that's it. I'm starting to think, hey, there's a chance he is in the rotation at some point in the All-Star
I
after the
agree.
All-Star break. Maybe a Julian Aguilar type season where he comes in and has to fill a spot and could actually be really big. But one thing about Chase Petty, he's younger than Chase Burns. The guy
Right,
that
dude.
we're,
I
we're,
think
we're
everybody kind of
salivating
forgets how
over,
young
he's
Chase
younger
Petty
than
is.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, I
3
think everyone
months.
kind of forgets how young he is. He is a very, very young pitcher and is still learning. I agree with you that I think that we do end up seeing him this season. I don't think that we see the fast track of Burns by any stretch of the imagination from him. But I do think that, and I also think that kind of what I said earlier, I think he actually will be a little more at the whim of need at the major league level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're necessarily going to force him in over some of your guys that you already have up there, like the same way you would with Burns. But he's a great option. He's a better option than we had for most of last year in AAA. So I think that the bats are going to be fun for the first couple months. They're going to be really fun to watch for their pitching. I think that there will be, how do I put this, up and down days on that staff, where some days will be a lot more fun than others, but it'll be entertaining regardless. So I know the people down at the bats will be excited about that.
Very much so. That bats AAA rotation going to be pretty stellar here to start the year. Well,
Yeah.
Matt, really do appreciate your time, my friend. As always, I could talk for 2 hours with you, but this is our spring training podcast, so we'll cut it here.
Yeah, one of these days we'll do the opening day 5-hour extravaganza where we sit down and just talk ball for as long as we want.
There you go. Love it. All right, Matt. Appreciate you, my friend. Have a great night.
Thank you, Nick. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.